Hi everyone, Ryan Duffy here from Precision Microbes. I'm back again for another episode of Tech in 10 where I'm going to be tackling mastitis and early lactation. Matthias is going to hit the timer. We have less than 10 minutes to talk about early lactation mastitis. Look, it's a very topical one because trying to get on top of a problem in early lactation is really difficult because we have a lot of other jobs going on, including calving, even managing transition milk and sealable milk. All of these things create more and more of a challenge in early lactation. So very straightforward, mastitis is an inflammatory process in the mammary gland or glands of cattle, and it is induced by a bacterial invasion of said mammary glands. Now there's two main presentations. There is contagious mastitis, that mastitis which spreads from cow to cow, so an infectious cow with infectious milk spreads it to an uninfected cow, and that often manifests as a high somatic cell count, so it's very much an invisible mastitis. The second form of mastitis is an environmental form, and it typically will manifest itself as a clinical mastitis, stuff that we can actually see. So we may see clots in milk, we may see an inflammatory process in the mammary gland itself, or we may even see sick animals. So that typically is coming from the environment. At this time of year, we're talking about cubicles, and that's where the bacteria are coming from to invade the cow's mammary gland or mammary glands. But in this one, we're going to focus on contagious mastitis. We will have a follow-up on environmental mastitis, but we're going to start with this invisible form of mastitis. So what are the main features? As I said, we can't really see it. It's very difficult to see clots, and yet the cow will have a high somatic cell count. So we must understand what exactly is happening. So from a herd's perspective, there may be a high cell count in the bulk tank, and you'll see that rising during lactation. Now obviously we're only after starting a lactation, but if we've had historical issues with a high somatic cell count and we're starting this lactation with a similar presentation, we must get on top of it, and that's a cell count of over 200,000. So also in your milk recording, you will also see certain key features which are fairly clear cut for contagious mastitis. We'll have a high persistent infection rate. So that means cows are getting a mastitis and it's holding on. They can't clear it. And that's over 8% of cows being persistently infected. They're often repeat offenders. So it's a big no-no. If we've just given them a good dry period with a good tube and a good length of a dry period and they still have an infection, we need to address those quarters. We need to address those cows. So again, a per dry period cure rate, we're aiming for over 85%. So if we're getting less than 85%, it's indicative that there's a lot of these pathogens which are holding on to the mammary gland. So again, less than 85% of cows are actually healthy, i.e. they have a cell count of less than 200,000 cells per mil. So those are some of the key features. Generally speaking, we're talking about older cows that have been in the herd for a longer time, and they've also spent more time in the parlour where these infections are actually spreading. So those are the main features of contagious mastitis. To really address it in early lactation, and because it's invisible, we must milk record. So if you have issues battling cell count, if you've had it historically, if you're having it again, we can't necessarily isolate which animal it is or animals that have the infection. We must milk record, and ideally within 60 days of calving. Now, why are we aiming for within 60 days? Well, there's a number of reasons for it, but the main one is it's going to actually give us an accurate representation as to how good our dry period cure rates was. If we go over 60 days, it's a bit more guesswork, whereas within 60 days, it's a fairly good sort of representation as to did the tubes work during the dry period or did they not? Not only that, but we can also potentially look at some other parameters such as milk fat to protein ratios and so on and so forth, which might actually give us a wee bit of a insight into the metabolic status of the animals as well. So that's what we're really looking at. So how is this thing spreading? We know where it's sourcing from. It's coming from infectious cows and their infectious milk. But how is it actually spreading? Are we contributing to it? Is the machine contributing to it? Is the milking routine contributing to it? So if we actually look, I've divided it up into routine and machine. So in respect to routine, hands are very capable of spreading this stuff. So If there's leaking milk, we have a lot of leaking cows, you know, we're getting up towards peak lactation, and see if one of those quarters or multiple of those quarters are infectious, it's very easy to get milk on our hands. If we're force stripping, it's also very easy to spread it from cow to cow. Again, if they're leaking. If we have a lot of heifers and they're very, very small teats and we're trying to strip them, it's very hard to not get milk on our hands. Let's hope it's not infectious milk. If we're using wipes to clean cows, again, very common in this time of year, but if we're using one wipe, one tissue wipe for a whole row, we could end up picking an infection up from the first cow and spreading it along that whole row, which is a big, big no-no. So we must really assess, is wiping necessary? And if we are going to wipe, are we going to do it at an individual level, or are we going to do it at a row level? Washing the platform is really a concern as well, because if we're stripping, our cows are leaking, and we start washing the platform when the cows are actually present on the platform, we could end up aerosolizing these bugs and getting them to spread that way as well. So again, just a big no-no. Just don't wash the platform whenever the cattle are actually on the platform, even if they have the clusters on them. And of course, post-milking teat disinfection is the best way of killing these contagious microorganisms. Then in respect to the machine, what should we look at whenever we're trying to look at the machine right now? Of course, liners. Look, we've more than likely changed the liners. They should be doing about 2,000 milkings. And look, at the end of the day, we've most likely changed those liners, so ruled that out as a potential way of spreading things. But we also must keep in line with vacuum fluctuations. So the regulator is key, making sure that we clean the sponge with soapy water, and air bleed holes, making sure that they're nice and patent, particularly in hard water areas. And obviously, milking machine hygiene. We all know how to wash our machine, how to look after it. So we must, again, keep on top of that. So it comes down to, how do we solve this issue if we have high somatic cell count? Well, first thing, as I said, we need to milk record. That's a non-negotiable. Once we've milk recorded, we'll know which cows have a high somatic cell count. So we've essentially narrowed down where the infection is. If it's a small number, we can potentially split the herd. Practically, that comes with a challenge. But if we can't split the herd, now it's a matter of doing a California milk test on the cows we know have infection. So this way, we can actually isolate the quarter, that particular quarter. And now it's a matter of, how do we actually address this? Do we stop milking that quarter? Do we dry that quarter off? Or do we address the cow if she has multiple quarters affected? Do we cull her? Beef prices aren't actually the worst at the moment. So that's the first step. Now we also do a culture. If we haven't done cultures historically, we must find out which bug it is. Usually contagious mastitis in Ireland is caused by Staph aureus. Strep uberis can also cause it, but generally speaking, it's Staph aureus. So again, it's just reaffirming what the case is. If you do a culture, you're also going to get an antimicrobial sensitivity or susceptibility test, and therefore it's going to tell you which antibiotics are actually going to work very well to it. Now it comes back down to, what can I do here and now? Gloved hands at all times. Maybe wipe out stripping, consult with your vet if that's practical or not. Definitely exclude communal wiping. Washing the platform, big no-no whenever cows are on the platform, and ensuring that we're putting on a post-milking teat disinfectant at every single milking, every single day throughout the year. The aim is 15 mils of post-milking teat disinfection per cow at every single milking, so that we're covering the whole barrel. Never give too little, always give too much of this stuff. And of course, make sure that our machine is humming, make sure everything is right, air bleed holes, regulators, liners, and make sure that you've got the full NCT done by a qualified milking machine technician. But that's pretty much contagious mastitis. A few little practical actions that we can take in addressing it. It is very frustrating. High cell count is frustrating, particularly because it's invisible. So if anyone has any questions, or if you want us to cover any other topic, please let us know. And that's me for this week.